Captain Ellis Monroe had flown more than 70 combat missions across the Middle East, but none ever left a mark. Not until the night he was sent into Iranian airspace to carry out a high-priority strike on a classified target in the Alborz Mountains. What was supposed to be a routine midnight operation became the last time anyone heard from him, and the wreckage of his jet would be found days later, buried in the snow, with no sign of his body. What happened in that sky was never entered into official reports, but fragments of his helmet camera were recovered, and some of the footage, the few seconds that weren't corrupted, told a story no one at the Pentagon ever wanted to talk about again. Ellis received the mission orders just after dusk, sitting alone in the pilot ready room, his gear already strapped down on the tarmac. The coordinates flashed on the screen with no explanation, just a target designation: Echo Site 7. It didn't appear on any previous intelligence briefings or satellite scans. No signs of enemy movement, no heat signatures, and no civilian presence within a 50-mile radius. That alone was strange. The military didn't usually drop ordnance on places that didn't show some kind of threat, but the orders came down directly from CENTCOM, marked "Need to Know." He didn't ask questions. He never did. You don't last long in this job by hesitating. The wheels left the ground at 11 p.m. The jet shuddered gently as it climbed through the warm Persian Gulf air, then stabilized once it breached the higher currents. Ellis was alone, flying a single-seater variant of the F-15 Strike Eagle, equipped with a single JDAM bomb and 2 external fuel tanks. The desert below was empty, save for the occasional flicker of oil fields glowing orange in the dark. He switched off external lights and went into low observability mode as he crossed the edge of Iranian airspace. The sky was cloudless, the stars sharp and steady, and the mountains ahead looked like jagged black knives rising from the earth. He could see the Alborz range stretching into the north, cloaked in snow and silence. There was something unsettling about how quiet the world felt at that altitude. No chatter, no radar warnings, just his own breathing inside the helmet and the hum of a machine that had never failed him. As Ellis approached the target zone, the terrain dipped into a shallow valley surrounded by steep, snow-covered cliffs. The satellite image on his console showed a small rectangular structure embedded into the side of the rock, barely visible but clearly man-made, no lights, no activity. Just a hatch or door of some kind, half buried in the slope. It didn't match any known Iranian military design. The whole area gave off a strange stillness, as if it hadn't been touched in decades. He made his first pass at 20,000 feet, checking for surface-to-air threats, but nothing moved. No infrared, no heat signatures. Even the birds seemed absent. He circled once more and armed the JDAM. Ellis aligned the crosshairs over the buried hatch and released the bomb. The JDAM detached cleanly and disappeared into the dark. He counted the seconds in his head, waiting for the flash, but it never came. No detonation, no plume, just silence. Confused, he double-checked the weapon system. Everything showed as deployed. A second later, the ground below his aircraft seemed to shift. Not explode, shift. Like something massive had turned beneath the surface. Snow began to slide down the cliffs around the site, and the hatch that had been visible seconds ago was gone, swallowed up by a wave of powder and debris. But that wasn't what made him panic. It was the light. A circular pattern of dim, pulsing light began to radiate from the valley floor. Not fire, not anything electrical. It was almost biological, like veins beneath the skin. It pulsed in slow, rhythmic beats, like a heartbeat amplified through the snow. Ellis instinctively pulled up, climbing hard. His chest tightened. He didn't know why. Nothing had attacked him. No warning lights were flashing. But something deep in his spine screamed to get away. He reached 30,000 feet before stabilizing, but the light didn't dim. It grew, rising with him like a glow that had no source. He looked down, and for a fraction of a second, he saw a shape emerge from the snow. Not a person, not a vehicle. Something too large to understand. Something older than the mountain itself. The first system to fail was his altimeter, then his horizon indicator. Then the HUD began to glitch, flashing fragments of code he didn't recognize. His radio spat out garbled static, punctuated by sharp bursts of something like breathing. Then the screen went black. Everything shut off. His entire cockpit dimmed. He was blind at 35,000 feet. He reached for the backup manual controls, and they responded, but sluggishly, as if the jet itself was being dragged by something unseen. Outside the canopy, the stars began to distort. He blinked and wiped at his visor, but the sky remained wrong. The stars didn't twinkle. They spun, slowly, like caught in a whirlpool. Below him, the mountain seemed to change shape. The valley was now a circle, too perfect to be natural, and the snow inside it was melting. But not from heat, from something else. Something that erased. Ellis realized he was losing altitude. The jet had gone into an uncommanded descent, despite his efforts to pull up. The nose dipped gently, not sharply as if being guided. Not forced, but invited. He reached for the emergency flaps and tried to reroute power, but the instruments flickered and died again. He wasn't falling fast. He was gliding down toward the light. The inside of his helmet fogged slightly from his breath, and he couldn't tell whether the chill was from the jet or from something far colder. The circle of light in the valley widened. Lines appeared in the snow like runes or symbols, not made by wheels or feet, but formed from underneath, as if the mountain was remembering something. At 10,000 feet, the engine restarted, just like that. All systems flickered back, the lights returned, the radar came online, the controls unlocked, but the radar showed something he hadn't seen before, a shape hovering at his altitude, just ahead of him, motionless. It had no heat, no transponder. It wasn't metallic. It wasn't even visible to the naked eye. But the radar insisted it was there, massive, slow, and impossible. The jet shook, not violently, just enough to make every bolt feel loose. He looked forward and, for the briefest moment, caught a glimpse of something ahead. A sphere, transparent, floating in place. Inside it, shadows moved, slow and tall, like giants seen through water. His breathing grew shallow. The G-suit tightened around his chest. The machine was climbing now, faster than he commanded. It was responding, but not to him. Like something else was helping it climb, or pulling it. The ground fell away again, but the light did not diminish. It followed, chased him into the sky. His vision blurred at the edges. His fingers lost feeling. Then, without warning, the cockpit filled with a soft, amber glow. Not from any screen, from the air itself. And in that glow, he felt something he had never felt in all his years of flying. Not fear, not adrenaline, grief. He didn't know why, but he knew, without understanding, that whatever this was, it wasn't showing itself fully. It didn't need to. It had already won. Ellis regained control at 50,000 feet. He turned the jet southwest, trying to break out of Iranian airspace, heading for the rendezvous point. Everything worked again. As if nothing had happened, no sign of the light, no strange readings. The instruments all read normal. The only evidence that something had gone wrong was a slow, irregular beeping from his black box, a series of pulses that didn't match any warning system. As he crossed the border, he keyed the transponder to signal his return. That's when the cockpit went dark one final time. Not a system failure, a blackout, total and immediate. The engines cut, the lights vanished, and the jet began to fall. The wreckage of Ellis's aircraft was discovered 4 days later, scattered across a frozen ridge in northern Iraq. The fuselage had broken in two, but the cockpit was mostly intact. His helmet was still strapped to the seat. But he wasn't inside. No body, no blood, no parachute deployed. The black box had recorded nothing after the system reset. But when the technicians recovered fragments of the onboard audio logs, they found one strange anomaly. Just before the power loss, a brief, garbled signal. It was not a human voice. It lasted 4 seconds. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Then silence. The mission was never acknowledged publicly. His name was added to a list of MIA, presumed dead. No funeral, no medals. Just a folded flag sent to a mother who never asked for details. The final report stated mechanical failure, weather interference, pilot error. But the engineers knew. The logs were clean. The jet was fine. Ellis Monroe had been taken by something that had waited in the mountain long before wars were fought. And whatever it was, it had no interest in peace. It only wanted to be seen, once and never forgotten. Thank you for listening to Warfare Chronicles. If you got to this point, Make sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss next episode. We are dropping new stories twice a week. Stay hard and see you in the next episode.